Happy Zelda-Month, ladies and gentlemen. Oh yeah, explanation. A few years ago, a man by the name of PeanutButterGamer dedicated an entire month to speaking only of Zelda and her franchise and dubbed it Zelda-Month. Since then, Mr. Buttergamer has treated this annual occasion as an unofficial holiday to celebrate the memories the Zelda games and paraphernalia have brought him. To this day, Mr. Buttergamer has given his all to ensure that the newfound tradition is carried out annually for the entire duration of the month November. Why celebrate Zelda-Month with him, you ask? Pfft, lowly commoners and their intellect. It's simple, really. PeanutButterGamer loves the Zelda franchise and thus celebrates Zelda-Month. I love the Zelda franchise and thus see no reason why I shouldn't celebrate Zelda-Month. I'm hoping he's okay with that, but from what I've seen of his videos, I don't think he'll mind terribly if I join in on the festivities. Right? Right? Mr. Buttergamer? Right? Okay, good. I've wanted to talk about this issue for quite some time, and only now have I decided to completely develop my argument and video on the matter completely in the spirit of Zelda-Month. This video will deal with the speculations regarding Zelda and Link as possible loved ones or even love interests. Cue the dramatic music. No, not that one. No, the Zelda one. No, what are you doing? No. No. Stop it. Okay, stop the dramatic music. I have to do everything myself. Okay. There seems to be a strong desire or voice actively for the romantic engagement of two of the main characters of the Zelda franchise, the brave hero Link and the wise princess Zelda. Obviously, there's no possible conceivable universe in which this could ever be so. Both of the main characters could never be or even fall in love with each other, and I'll explain the reasons why exactly sad loneliness or at least complete romantic separation lies in wait for both our valiant heroes. Judging solely on the games belonging to both the Zelda franchise and canon, it's easier to argue the case against romantic involvement than it is to argue for it. The obvious argument in favor of it is, of course, well, Link is a man and Zelda is a woman. Both of them are attractive and both of them save Hyrule from evil. And in all respects, his argument is pretty sound. Link and Zelda are indeed attractive, the former is indeed a man, the latter is indeed a woman, and both do end up saving Hyrule and all its inhabitants. So then what could possibly be my beef with this argument? First, we have to take a closer look at the actual structure of the video games themselves. Let's take Ocarina of Time as the archetypal example of a Zelda game. Not only because it's pretty much the first Zelda game I've ever played, but also because Nintendo themselves have come forward as saying that Ocarina is possibly the most important Zelda game in the franchise. Indeed, in the quote-unquote official timeline released by Nintendo in the Zeldapedia, the spot where the single timeline splits off into 3 unique timelines is with the events of Ocarina of Time. Regardless of the intellectual veracity of the Zelda timeline, it is the canonical representation of events that occur in the Zelda universe, and as such should be considered legitimate when dealing with analyses, interpretations, and the like. By looking at the structure of Ocarina of Time and even every other Zelda game in the canonical franchise, we can deduce that Nintendo is actually manufacturing narratives in the style of old-Germanic literature from the early and high Middle Ages. Works belonging to old-Germanic literature possess some very distinct characteristics, and the majority of them, if not all of them, can be observed in games belonging to the Zelda franchise. In order to properly demonstrate this point, I'll be going over each characteristic individually, and explain how each one also exists in the Zelda games, in this case Ocarina of Time. The first characteristic of works belonging to the Old Germanic literary period is the fact that each story is a hero's tale with a set narrative structure. Essentially, a warrior hero is established, it is revealed that something is amiss and that hero sets out to fix it. The story of Beowulf belongs to this period and I'll be using it for comparison, so if you know its major plotline, feel free to draw parallels between its general structure and that of Ocarina of Time. When we overlay the major plotline of Ocarina with that of Beowulf, paying attention to the structure and not the content, they align seamlessly. A hero is introduced and established in the first moments of the story, the hero is met with certain opposition, the hero fights for his life to try and overcome the struggle, the hero is successful in beating the odds and the opposition and returns to a somewhat peaceful existence. In Beowulf, the structure is repeated 3 times, but it's pretty much intact all the way. Some would argue that because Beowulf dies near the end, it's hardly a peaceful existence, but I have to disagree. In and of itself, death is pretty final and peaceful. Think of it as the end of all fighting, the stop to all problems, stress and worries. Obviously, I advocate for living happily as long as possible, but to say that death is somehow a non-peaceful existence in which more fighting needs to occur is simply not true. Life ends, death persists and is unchanging, and that's that. Though we perceive the act of dying and the state of death to be nothing but terrible, for a warrior of those days there could be no more peaceful existence or satisfactory way to go than amidst the throes of battle and war. Nowadays we mourn and remember our dead, but many cultures back in the day celebrated the way in which their dead gave their last breath. The more heroic the death, the more reason for celebration. Bear in mind also that the hero's reward of the afterlife was also a very dominant belief at the time, so it's possible he's living it up with Zeus and Odin and the boys up in Sovngarde. Furthermore, there is the Platonic idea of the temporal human existence. Plato believed in a perfect world with perfect shapes that existed transcendentally besides the world which we perceive, i.e. reality. Every object we see is but an imperfect version of the perfect prototypical shape that exists wholly independently in this other dimension. Human beings also have a prototype, namely the soul. As you live and breathe and work and play, your body serves as the prison to your soul. Once you die, your soul is released and freed from its bondage. In other words, death serves as a tool with which you free your soul, your true self. With this and the other points I raised earlier, it becomes easy to see why death can be seen as a peaceful state. This point of a set structure in the Zelda games is not at all a new discovery. To my great annoyance and despair, critics and gamers alike have been lamenting the fact that the story in the Zelda games never deviates from its established norm. They are right, but it's not like that's at all a legitimate point of criticism given the fact that Nintendo was harkening back to the days of 700 AD with one of their most beloved IPs, which I intend to prove in this video. The stories of those days were great then, are considered great today, and the Zelda games, quite frankly, are no exception. To say that this set narrative structure is one Nintendo dare not stray away from is to do nothing but praise their intentions and their efforts. The Zelda games are not poorer because the narrative structure remains the same for every single installment. The next characteristic that all works in the old-Germanic literature share is the presence of Christian symbols and elements. Again, this overlaps perfectly with what's present in Ocarina of Time. In terms of symbols, you need only look at how many stones young Link is collecting and where he actually places these stones. While you're at it, also observe how there's 3 goddesses, Din, Furore, and Nehru, all of whom created the heavens and the earth and combined into one to form the Triforce, the holiest and most sacred of Hylian relics, which grants whoever possesses it an immense amount of power. In case it's unclear to some, the Christian God is often said to be 3 in 1 in what is referred to as the Holy Trinity. He is said to be the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. In the Old Testament, the very first book, the book of Genesis, and its very first verse read, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth." God is said to have created the universe in 6 days, after which he rested on the 7th day. The significance of the Holy Trinity and the Genesis account have ever since the beginning had a large significance in Western civilization. The numbers 3 and 7 are seen as quote-unquote holy numbers, in the sense that the inclusion of these numbers can be linked to religious symbology without making any leaps of logic. I am not wrong to interpret the significance of the Triforce, the 3 stones that young Link collects, the 3 goddesses, and a number of other elements and symbols present in Ocarina of Time as religious, and in this case Christian. If you're not convinced yet, how about the fact that Princess Zelda is divinely inspired and endowed to save Hyrule alongside Link? The Triforce is a sacred artifact. You don't think anyone but a person worthy to carry its powers and responsibilities would be granted the honor, do you? What about the 6 medallions that old Link is asked to collect, the 7th and complete quote-unquote medallion in the series being either the Master Sword, the power adult Link picked up in order to collect these medallions, adult Link himself, as he is the one who collects the medallions, or Princess Zelda, who, as I've mentioned briefly just now, and as I'll mention later on, is made out to be the be-all end-all solution to saving Hyrule. Save her, save the world. The point about the medallions may be a little far-fetched, so you could argue that the jury's out on that one. But that's fine, I really don't need it to further drive home my point. How about the physical manifestation and indeed overly simplistic representation of the battle between good and evil? Good and evil are 2 very vague and arbitrary terms, as there isn't really an objective way of determining if something is good or bad. The Bible, however, speaks of what's good and evil, right and wrong, all the time, and so too does Ocarina of Time. Link, Zelda, Hyrule, and anything that isn't Ganondorf or brought about by his doing is your good. There's no possible way that Link has any negative traits, and Hyrule is the bee's knees. It's all peace, well, fine and dandy until Ganondorf shows up and ruins everything. Ganondorf is your evil. He's made out to be the fallen angel who seeks power for power's sake. He's mean, obsessed, powerful, immoral, arrogant and proud. He and his actions alone are turning Hyrule into a wasteland full of misery, despair and hatred. In the end, Link uses his Sword of Evil's Bane and rids the world of all its problems, and Ganondorf is no more. Good will always triumph over evil. Again, this clearly connects with everything both Testaments and the Bible say, and as such, this is another example of the heavy presence of Christian symbols and elements, just like in old Germanic literature. I think I've proved that Christian elements, like it or not, are pervasive throughout Ocarina of Time. Moving on then to the next characteristic, is the idea of the wonderful and infallible ruling members of society. In this case, and as was the case in the olden days, the royal family. The royal family in Ocarina of Time is nothing short of perfect. They are the true Hylians, physically distinct from the common folk and descendants of a lineage and legacy as old as time itself. They live in an enormous castle, guarded by scores of vigilant watchmen and surrounded only by the magnificent sky, beautifully tended gardens and plains of grass, and the birds do sing to keep Zelda, the dear princess, company. The royal father, the King of Hyrule, is a fair ruler indeed. He provides for his poor denizens and assures that they are at peace. He and his daughter, the fair-of-hair Princess Zelda, are clad in the most stylish, elegant and expensive garments. She, of course, is the most magnanimous, most attractive and most intelligent maiden in all the land. She can write and read, a skill only someone like Navi can have in common, and even judge characters like no one else can. All of her skills and actions are a testament to her unending wisdom. She herself is guarded by the most prestigious of royal guard organizations, the Shaker, an organization that has guarded the royal family for generations, possibly since its inception, and she of course is assigned her own personal bodyguard, Impa, who would give her life up for the princess in half a heartbeat. Even after Ganondorf, the vile scourge of Hyrule, has laid waste to Hyrule Castle after Zelda escapes his grasp, she proves to be incredibly resourceful, fast, intelligent, agile, and nothing short of extraordinary as the person of Sheik. Once she reveals her identity to adult Link, however, she is captured by the vile and evil Ganondorf, who seeks only the power Zelda possesses, a right never bestowed upon him, and thus a clear violation of Zelda's divine rights as royalty. Then, as the monster Ganon is defeated and Zelda is safe, the land of Hyrule will revert back to its original peaceful state, as everything is once again alright and in equilibrium. I think my dramatic narration and description of the royal family in Ocarina of Time is enough to convince anyone of my point, but I'll elaborate for the sake of clarity. The game really does drive home the point that the royal family is, to use a colloquial expression, the tits. It does everything in its power to convince you that they are everything you could ever wish for. The royals are the next step on the evolutionary ladder. They are above the commoners as demigods, just a few feet short of being true gods. There's no criticizing the royals, not a single person in Hyrule dares to have an opinion on them that is even slightly dismissive or contemptuous, despite the possible trouble they may find themselves in. Indeed, a lot of, if not all of the townsfolk and other civilians worship the royal family and Princess Zelda. They can hardly ever catch a glimpse of them, what with them locking themselves up at the castle, but whenever they do lay eyes on them, it's as though they've witnessed perfection, and nothing that will ever exist will come close to what has already been achieved by the royals simply by existing. They are celebrities in every form of amazing. They are the natural order in the way things should be. To tamper with the natural order by means of capturing Zelda or killing the king is to doom all of Hyrule. Only once the order has been restored by releasing Princess Zelda and punishing the evildoer can everyone rest assured and sleep safe and sound again. Even Link, the hero who goes through all the trouble and adventure, cannot help but remain flabbergasted at the mere sight of the beautiful princess, hence his perpetual speechlessness. These are the three major characteristics that are owned to old-Germanic literature, and the ones I need to further develop my case for the notion of a Link and Zelda pairing that is without lust or romance. The other two are allusions to conflicts between tribes and or between persons, and the complex whole of different storylines. The former is one I'd need more time to fully investigate, but the latter one is one I believe also speaks for itself. The main storyline is of course to save the princess who helps you save Hyrule, and attached to that we get Malon and Talon shenanigans, the Goron tribe's shindig, the Zora tribe's kerfuffle. Even the collection mini-quests can be seen as storylines in themselves, with the collecting of the songs for the ocarina, the quest for the Bigoran sword, the collection of the pieces of heart, the bottles, and so on. I won't go into further detail with these two, as I feel like I've made my case as to why the old Germanic literature was definitely an inspiration for the Zelda games, particularly Ocarina of Time. Yeah, but so what? Who cares? Literature? I like games, man. Scoundrel, you poopy pants. So what if you prove that literature in Japan and Nintendo 64? Why does this pertain at all to the possibility of Link and Zelda falling in love, getting married and possibly having babies? For that, my horribly impatient friend, you will have to wait for part 2. I've already taken plenty of your time and hopefully attention, and I fear that if I go any longer, I'll bore even myself with my crazy theories. Stay tuned for next week in part 2, subscribe if you'd like to be automatically notified when it is released, and don't forget to rate the video according to your tastes and leave a comment if you'd like to take me to task on any of the things I've said so far. Thanks for watching, enjoy Zelda-Month, and see you soon.